All right, hi everybody. Welcome to day three as we kick off today with the CEFMA Virtual Vegas Road to the Future Facility Master Plans. We have a great panel for you today, and we're excited to look at it. A couple of housekeeping items as it was yesterday. Remember that you are muted and you don't have video. So please use the Q&A function if you have any questions to ask the panelists. You can answer those or deposit those at any time, and we'll look to answer them at the end. So again, we have a great panel here, and I'm going to go ahead and log off and turn this over to Nick. All right, thanks guys for having us.
Thank you, Justin, and appreciate everyone joining us today. Before I get started, on behalf of the panel, I want to thank NACDA and the CEFMA Board of Directors. I think we've talked a lot about pivoting in this world we live in today, and I think the board of CEFMA did a great job of pivoting to allow us to continue these educational opportunities for everybody. But I just want to say thank you, like I said, on behalf of the panel, and like to welcome you to our discussion today, the Roadmap to the Future, Facility and Master Planning. During the session, as Justin said, we'd love questions. We want to make this as interactive as possible. So if you have questions, please send them Justin's way and we'll talk about them. So, but we'll start off with some introductions. I'm Nick Nagel. I'm the Senior Associate Athletic Director at the University of North Texas. I will serve as the moderator today for today's discussion. Today, I'm joined by three subject matter experts who've recently completed facility or master plans at their institutions or firms. So first, I'll introduce Cass Ferguson. Cass is the Assistant Athletic Director for Facilities and Event Management at Charlotte. Cass, thanks for being here today. Also have Patrick Hasher. Patrick's the Associate Athletic Director for Facilities and Operations at Georgia State University in Atlanta. Patrick, appreciate you being here. And then finally, we have Mark Clear. Mark is a project manager with the SLAM Collaborative. You might know Mark from his time at Heary Sports, and if you don't know, all those fine folks at Heary, between Mike and Mark and Dane and Emily and those guys, are now part of the SLAM Collaborative in Atlanta. So great move for those guys. So thank you guys all for being here. Appreciate the time. And I think we'll get right into it because we're gonna try to get rolling so we can get some questions. So Cass, I'm gonna start with you. Can you talk to us a little bit about why your institution needed a master plan?
Well, for us, it was a few reasons. One thing that I think sparks a lot of master plans is we got a new athletic director. So we had a new administration come in. With the new administration, there's a want to change, not necessarily change, but reinvigorate the program or kind of put their own stamp on it. The other piece for us is we are having to add a new sport. We added football in 2013. And so we're going to have to add a sport for Title IX reasons, which means that a new facility needs to be added to house whatever sport that may be. And the other piece for us is our facilities have gotten older. We had a lot of facilities built in the 94 to 96 range. And as everybody on the presentation knows, our scholarships have grown, but our facilities haven't. And along with stuff like nutrition stations and everything that goes into student athlete wellness now. So we needed to look at revamping spaces. They are still working, but not to the functionality that we really need them to. So those were the driving factors for us.
Great. Patrick, how about up at Georgia State? What caused you guys to need one?
Pretty similar to Cass, we also got a new athletic director, whereas ours also came with a necessity because of the way the pro sports in the city were moving. So the Falcons were tearing down the Georgia Dome, and then the Braves announced that they were moving. So we were able to purchase the Braves' old football stadium, which, gave us the opportunity of 70 additional acres in downtown. And with that new land, it really, the vision was very clear. The other thing is you can see down in the bottom right of this picture, the softball, soccer, baseball facilities are pretty far from campus. They're probably 30 or so minutes. And our student athletes actually drive there every day for practices. So that's not ideal. So the ability to get the land near where it says Summerhill Track and Field that really kind of gave us a great vision on how we can kind of bring everybody home and bring everybody to campus to have a, athletics district. So.
Is it really only a 30-minute drive to softball? I've been in Atlanta traffic. It seems a lot longer than 30 minutes on that map.
It could be anywhere from 20 to 45, I
can imagine. So, all right, Mark, so a little bit different. You guys are a firm. Talk to us about the different approaches you as a firm and as an architect have taken to facility and master planning.
Sure, and thanks for the introduction, the explanation on our new home at SLAM. We're all thrilled about. I think the point here, and you've heard two examples, is everybody comes at a master plan from a different place, and so no two are created equal. And so, not everybody is able to bite off a full master plan, so we do a lot of district specific plans as well, or just facility master plans. We just finished up for Maryland about 6 different venues. We didn't take a step back and look at the entire program. They felt pretty good about where they were, but we really spent our time focusing on those venues, on floor plans, cost estimates, and renderings so they could engage their donors. So the biggest point for us is those are all okay. Wherever you're at as a department, there's always a good place to be planning. So.
Great. Well, thank you. Cass, going to throw this one back to you. You kind of shared with us why Charlotte needed a master plan. Can you talk to us about the process and kind of how the plan developed?
For us, it was really us looking at what we needed. And that runs the full gamut of everything. We looked at everything. We have certain areas that need fan amenities expanded, such as football and basketball. We have locker rooms. We have nutrition spaces. So we really prioritized what we needed to add, where we were lacking. And then also for us, a piece of it was what sports we were looking to add. So we kind of had to do a master plan with the thinking of multiple sports that we could add. So those were the things about how it developed. And I know we'll touch on it in the next question, but also who was going to be a part of it. That was a big piece of it as well, which I won't get into now because I know that's later in the presentation.
Great, thank you. Patrick, kind of over to you. When you told us about how your kind of master plan developed, do you want to share that with the group?
Sure thing. So the last photo that you guys saw was our 20, kind of what the athletic facilities looked like in 2015. That was right before I started working here. So then this right here is kind of our one-sheeter master plan that we've come up with. The picture on the left, the whole master plan really kind of spurred off this picture on the left that, Huey, now Slam, Mark and Dane, Emily, all them kind of drew for us the programming for the stadium. Once we saw this, the vision for the master plan was very, very clear. You've got baseball, softball right here on this property. Mark will touch on the convocation center he's building for us later, and then soccer and everything just kind of fell into place here. This is about a mile from campus, so it was a no-brainer. I remember on the interview I took right after Thanksgiving in 2015, the new athletic director just drove me around to all of these places, explaining the vision, pointing all of them out, and really thinking about the 15, 20 years down the road when the money falls into place to get these things done. And like I said, it all really fell into place to build this athletics district when the land for the stadium came open. We went with like a one-sheeter master plan rather than a 30 to 40 page. We didn't spend a lot of time doing all the meetings and all the paperwork and all the trail. The old athletic director, when she was here right before she left, there was a 30-40 page document. And to be frank, I feel bad for everybody that worked on that. John Portland, I hope you're listening, but I feel bad because that kind of just got tossed in the trash once this land came open. So we went with the one-page master plan. There's more than one way to skin a cat, and we really point to this, and our AD talks to the president And we kind of push this out to all the donors in order to help raise some of that money with this kind of one-sheeter. So.
Cool. I think that's really great. I really think it's a great story. Talk about you and your athletic director on your interview, just driving around and him saying, I want to do this, this, this. And it's a one-sheeter where, like, here in North Texas, we kind of did the opposite. We went the 20-year plan down the road, met with everybody we could, and we got a great plan too. So Mark, it's kind of back to you. You kind of hit on it on your first question. You guys have done a lot of different things recently, and I'm going to switch to your slide in a second here. Can you kind of just talk about different approaches and how they're effective?
Sure. I think it's funny, Patrick, you mentioned the previous one being kind of thrown away. I think a theme you'll hear us talk about is keeping flexibility built into the program. You're not always accounting for purchasing a prior Olympic stadium is a pretty big change. We know you have coaching changes and donor changes. Those are usually the flexibility we're building in. So I can appreciate that group not foreseeing a property like that becoming available. But usually we're trying to take the approach of look at it both from 30,000 feet. What are the big goals for this plan? Be it a full master plan like you're seeing on the left side there with Nick, with yours at North Texas, or just a specific facility like the ones I mentioned at Maryland. What's the big goals? At the same time, we're understanding the big goals with the steering committee. We're also down in the weeds. And so we're talking whether it's a nutritionist that needs a better touchdown space to be able to engage the student athletes, or it's a strength and conditioning coach who's having scheduling conflicts with multiple sports. We're kind of working it from both those angles at the same time. And usually that will arrive you back on the master plan that makes the most sense for your university.
Great. Thanks, Mark. And thanks for talking a little bit about the steering committee in your answer, because it leads us to this next question. It's like we scripted this thing or something. Patrick, can you talk to us a little bit about who made the cut for your steering committee and kind of like who's in your group?
So ours was very different. The whole property has a lot of private land too. We actually only own about half of the 70 acres, and then a private real estate group owns the rest. And I know Mark will kind of touch on this too, but so that private group is in most of those meetings. Maybe not about the specific venue, but they are definitely in it when you talk about the entire property as a whole. They are building Publix, hotels, dorms, apartments, everything like that. So some of those dorms are done, apartments are working, Publix starts at the end of the summer. So it's really kind of a whole thing. You definitely had the normal people, the president, the CFO, the facilities, us. We did not have as many of the campus groups, and I know Cass will kind of touch on like campus rec or dining. We didn't have a lot of that because this was just new land that we were building like a new district on. So we had more of the bigwigs and athletics, but then that Carter group also was definitely involved. For golf and track, golf, we actually helped build a 6-bay indoor hitting facility up about 2 miles from campus with a course, a local golf course, Bobby Jones. So we put in some money with them in order to get access to some bays 8 to 10 months of the year. And then for track and field, we only have women's track and field. That was part of us adding football back in 2010. And we're working with Atlanta Public Schools on that. There's a track. It was actually the Olympic warm-up track about 3 blocks east of the stadium. And we're slowly working with them on how we can work together in order to get our track team access to practice and also access to actually compete there too. Because right now we do all road track meets. So.
You don't want track meets. No, I'm just kidding. No, track meets are fun.
I did a ton of them at my old school.
They're fun. And I also need to ask you about some hitting-based stuff. We're building a golf facility, so remind me after this. Mark, I think that Patrick touched on the public-private development. I think it's a trend that we're seeing not only in colleges but in pro sports. So just talk a little bit about what you're seeing on your side. And are there any other groups that you're seeing that are starting to infiltrate these kind of facility and master plans?
Well, I think we always are trying to encourage as many people from athletics and campus to be a part of that committee, so you can hear the varying priorities. Certainly, being at that table for Georgia State's example with the private developer, that's a big one. And those P3s, there's a lot of those going on. We certainly see that trend continuing. And I know in that case, we're really trying to we're kind of a neutral party in that scenario. That sometimes allows us to ask some of the tough questions, and we really want to see ourselves as an advocate for athletics there. If we can bring some of the benchmarking data or some knowledge we've seen from other examples, sometimes that helps the larger group to be able to make a better informed decision on whatever this capital project is. And so that's usually what we're trying to do.
Great, thanks. Cass, you went through a little more traditional, I think, master plan, kind of like we did at North Texas. Talk a little bit about, who besides your athletics folks were in that room.
So for us, one thing, especially for us, anybody who's ever been to our campus and I know a lot of people are like this, is all of our facilities are very integrated in the middle of campus. We don't necessarily have a district. We're not like some schools who you go down on the other side of the road and there's the athletic district. We're tied in. We're right next to recreational fields for intramurals. Our basketball facility is shared with student affairs, and there's some meeting space in there along with some rec space. So we included those people in our meetings as well as an advisory role because of the fact that on our campus, there's a lot of land swapping. Real estate's one of the key pieces for us because in order for us to build something, there's a chance we're probably taking something away from somebody else. So relocating that on another piece of campus. Our campus facilities management folks were very involved because outside of our athletic master plan, there's also a campus master plan. And with us being so integrated in the middle of campus, a future basketball practice facility is possibly going to be right in the heart of campus. So making that match what campus is going to look like, or, there could be when we're just sitting around a conference room, spitballing and saying, oh, well, that piece of land there would be great to put this on. And then campus facilities master plan says, no, there's a science building going there. So we're going to have to back up and punt.
Okay, great. So guys, we've kind of talked through the process, who was involved in the planning, who made the steering committee. I want to talk a little bit about like timelines within your specific plans, and in Mark's case, like what he's seeing. So like at North Texas, we went with a 20-year plan, but within our 20-year plan, there are 3 phases. There's a short-term, mid-term, long-term. You're seeing 5-year, 10-year plans. Mark, is there a direction that you see this going in the industry, or is it really just case by case?
Well, I think we always tried to keep it pretty flexible and let it be more about the sequence of events. Sometimes you do, like Cass was just mentioning, somebody's got to vacate one piece of property before the next group can take it over. So there's usually a sequence that has to happen. But we always kind of heard the need to remain flexible for some of those changes that we've talked about, and obviously changes going on now, flexibility, being a key theme. So that's usually just that sequence. Where we do get specific is in planning for cost estimating. So we're always providing estimating, as a part of these projects. That's the key, is to get in front of your donors, of course. And so, we do show specifics so you can understand how escalation will affect those costs. We just finished one for Pittsburgh, and they have a couple years before their kind of phasing can start. And so you got to understand your whatever your project costs are now, you look a couple of years down the road, you need to understand how each of those phases will be affected by that. So that's kind of where you have to get specific just for planning sometimes, but usually we'll keep those kind of cost estimates and that specific planning on one track. And maybe that's not what the public always sees on the more general priorities, so that you can remain a little more flexible with your donors.
Great. So Patrick, like, I know yours is kind of a one-sheeter. Do you guys have like a time frame, or is it really just what fits next into your plan?
Ours has kind of been a little more what fits next. Football was a necessity because we didn't literally had nowhere to play when the Georgia Dome got blown up. Then kind of we move into what is a little bit simpler, right? So like soccer has been a little simpler to build than baseball and softball together. We were able to self-fund that out of our reserves, a couple $1 million, rather than needing $12 to $20 million in order to build a baseball softball field. So that's kind of how ours has gone. It's been very fluid. It's been very driven by market and how we can kind of move those things around.
Cool, great. So Cass, we're gonna peel back the curtain a little bit. So for those that don't know, Charlotte's master plan is not public yet. We tried to get Cass to show us something, but he said Mike wouldn't let him. So hopefully Mike's watching, but hopefully Mike's not watching this question. So Cass, give us a little bit of a peek behind the curtain of like what the timing looks like in your program.
I mean, with us, of course, everything's very fluid right now because of what's happening. But with us, I mean, we're gonna have shovels in the ground here within 2 years because of the fact that we have to add a sport. But I think, the one thing that we have been very intentional on, not only when we talk to our coaches, but also when we think about the public rollout of this, is that this is a 10-year vision. In fact, we've kind of stopped internally. We've started calling it the master vision instead of the master plan because of the fact that is not going to be something that's going to happen in the next 2 to 3 years. When we built our football stadium, is built to be expandable. Well, one of the pictures that made it out was it with 45,000 seats. And so people thought we were going to be at that within 5 years. So I think that's one thing we're being very intentional on is, yes, you're going to see upgrades to this facility, but it's not going to be in the next 5 years. And one thing that I will just finish on is the hardest conversation we had was the phasing. We knew we had to get the new sport taken care of. But then after that, there's certain stuff that you're going to have funding for because of donors that you're going to do, even though, there may be a track and field locker room that really needs to be fixed, but you have money earmarked for something else because the donor gave it to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So Mike, if you're listening, you can listen again. He didn't reveal too much. I think the curtain's still on it, so I think we're good. So kind of wrapping this up, I see we're getting a bunch of questions in from the audience and really do appreciate that. We're going to try to hit as many of those as we can. But Patrick, I'm going to go back to you here. So your plan is kind of finished. Now what? Like one of the things at North Texas we talked about when we finished the plan, we don't want to just stick it on a shelf and let it create dust. Mark didn't want to see that. We didn't want to see that as a steering committee. So we want to make sure that we kept it fresh. How are you guys? Are you guys looking at it a lot with coaches? How does that work at Georgia State?
I kind of mentioned it in the last question. Ours has been very fluid with kind of how the dominoes have fallen, and I'm sure everybody's dominoes are standing right back up now that, money is very, very tight. But one thing that has really pushed ours along has been coaching changes. So we got a new men's basketball coach, and we had filled a aquatic center, the pool, and put down a practice gym. And then with the new coach, now all of a sudden filling the deep well and finishing the other half of the court, or the other half court, becomes a bigger priority. So that's one way. The other thing is we've been very fortunate that our facilities have probably been the most lacking part of our athletic department. So there has been a lot of support from campus, from our president, from donors, from the coaches. Everybody has been really supportive of us getting to that next level of facilities so that we can continue to grow and recruit and all the things that everybody's working on. So it's been really fun. A lot of work, very fun, very interesting to work at Georgia State the last 4 to 5 years because of that, because we've had so much support for building and improving our facilities.
Exciting time for sure. There's not many people that can say that they've got to renovate a baseball stadium that used to be the Olympic Stadium into a football stadium. So that's a lot. That's an awesome job. And last time I was in Atlanta, Mark took me through there and geeked out about all the cool stuff that was there. It's a pretty cool tour. If anybody gets to Atlanta, look up Patrick, look up Mark, go on that tour. It's awesome. So Cass, we just kind of talked about the fact that yours isn't public, but I'm sure you guys have reviewed it and tweaked it. How are you keeping it fresh? Are you visited with the coaches? I think we talked about a lot of coaches being different at Charlotte in the last couple of years.
Yeah, ours hasn't even been able to get up on a shelf yet. For us, we've had 6 new head coaches in the past, I think 20 months, 24 months. So that's definitely put an emphasis on it. Success, I mean, that has helped us as well from a donor perspective. I mean, making the first bowl game, turning it around basketball wise, that has helped get some more stuff in. And then also for us, and I don't know if my staff, Joey and Andrew, are watching this, but every time they come to me and tell me that something has broke in our current field house or in our track, that helps keep it relevant too, because of the fact that I can show those numbers of this is what it's costing us to maintain this right now, because we're having to replace critical infrastructure when we really know that we need to replace the whole building.
Okay, that's awesome. So Mark, what kind of requests are you getting from clients after these are done? Don't use me you can use me as an example, but I know you guys just get requests from people that have done these, and what are you guys seeing right now at Slam?
I will use you as an example. I mean, I think the point for us is when the master plan's handed over, that relationship isn't ended there. We think communication, just like through the process, is key afterwards. And so we want to be checking in with you. We try and do a good job of checking in after the fact. And so, in your case, if there's a small change here or there that we need to adjust something on the plan, that's pretty easy. We can turn around quickly. Or if we need to take a look at like the athletic center and make a deeper dive in on a venue and really reprogram and update it for the changes that have happened, we want to be a part of that and asking the right questions so that it's fresh on your mind. And we've done similar with Georgia State. Just we want to keep that relationship going. And half the stuff that we drew, even in that scenario, has had tweaks, changes, or new facilities come online, like the convocation center we're working on. And so as much as you plan, the changes are going to happen. And so if we can be talking with you and working with you to make those updates, then that way it's not 2 years that have gone by and you say, oh, we really, we should have updated this. Other things get in the way. And so if you can keep that communication open, that tends to be the first step.
Awesome. Well, like I said, I've got some master plan updates. I think we might need a little bit of a checkup at North Texas, some stuff there. So we've gotten a lot of questions, guys. So I think we should try to answer some of the questions from the audience. Justin's back with us. So Justin, I'll turn it over to you. It looks like we got a bunch.
Yeah, Nick, thanks everybody. Feel free to keep them coming in. Wish we could answer all of them, but first one, and I debated on whether asking you this one first or if we leave it off. It's a COVID-19 related question. So we'll throw it on there first. So have your projects been impacted by COVID-19? And I think we can double that up, and I'll kind of add to it for Mark. Has he seen his designs being impacted by COVID-19 and, for the long term or short term?
Mark, why don't you talk about the design piece? Are you guys seeing requests from a design standpoint, COVID related things?
Oh, sure. I mean, everybody's trying to figure it out, certainly. And so I think, you certainly have to look in the short term when we're in the middle of it versus long term. So from a long term standpoint, as it relates to master planning, it's hard to know what the impacts are going to be. What we do know is stuff's going to take more space. So I think when you look at either food service or screening upon entering a venue, there's going to be permanent impacts on that, we think, and it comes down to more space for the first thing. And so, when you start a plan for any facility or full department, one of the first things you're doing is athletic facility assessment. You want to see what the facilities are. So this is kind of new items for us to check off that list when we're doing that assessment. We know it also reinforces just having to remain flexible because we don't know what that final answer is going to be. And so you got to build that flexibility in. So.
Cass, is it affecting you guys at Charlotte with your timing? I know you have to get a sport going in the next 2 years. So I'm assuming that's still high on the list.
It's still hot on the list. It's definitely made us tap the brakes. And because we also had backup plans as well, because, you know, you could play with certain sports in your football stadium. So that's basically it's made us look at that more. Honestly, the biggest thing for us is, you know, when you showed the first slide, it was just the cover from when we first started doing it. We were supposed to be releasing at some point this spring. And so it slowed down the release to where now there's no telling when we could release it. You know, you want to say fall, but, you know, as everybody knows, things could change. And you went from fundraising for facilities, because one piece with us is we had already started the fundraising because we wanted to release the master vision and say, we've already raised this much money for it. Well, all of a sudden you stop fundraising for any facilities to student athlete wellness stuff. So that's just completely turned us in a 180 direction right now. And it's also, you know, it's not a good time to be going out and necessarily asking for money for new facilities.
Sure. And then Patrick, I mean, obviously I think it's affected your athletic plan. Curious with the public-private stuff, is it stopping private development, or are you guys still turning and burning in Atlanta?
Mark is still working on the convocation center, moving. That's a lot of state funding. The private stuff, the hotel that was supposed to be done, that has pumped the brakes some. Publix is still supposed to come later in the summer. So it doesn't sound like that's affecting anything. Our soccer facility, like I said, we're self-funding that. That has like completely pumped the brakes. We are going to have a field that is a facility that is ready for grass, but since we are self-funding it, we are being told to hold on from our upper management to not spend the money to put that grass down until people are more comfortable with how fall enrollment is going to happen. So hopefully the fall, everything gets a little bit back to normal, and you know, we can release those funds, but it's definitely affected us with our men's and women's soccer teams.
Great.
Nick, I think that leads in well to kind of two questions that we can kind of join into one. One was exactly that, you know, are these all donor funded projects, or are there other aspects on where these are being funded from institutionally, and expanding on that, and maybe Mark can chime in on where he sees people fund. But then additionally, do you see when you are creating these plans or vision, as Cass says, if there's a donor driven project, are they jumping up in those phases? Are they being impacted in that? And how are you able to answer those questions?
Yeah. So Mark, you want to talk about that a little bit? And if you're seeing, are they a lot of donor, like I'll take North Texas example. I know I'm the moderator, but I'll tell you, we are literally going to kick off a completely donor funded golf project. Hopefully when the city releases it tomorrow, we'll be ready to go. But Mark, you seeing a donor project still going, but like convocation center is a perfect example. Do you feel like the state of Georgia is going to tap the brakes on funding for that? Or do you think it's going to be okay? Or is that $1 million question?
We hope not. No, I mean, if it's, and again, you know, from my seat, I mean, when you see something that's bond money, that's kind of, once that's set in place, it's like use it or lose it, and it's usually pretty stable. And so I think there's you know, everybody wants to see as much move forward as we can. I know donor funded are more volatile. A lot of what we talk about flexibility is either, you know, donors changing or a new donor coming online you weren't anticipating. That's always that can push a project forward in a hurry, you know. And so those have slowed down. I think part of it's looking ahead to the construction market too. Luckily, most of those projects have been deemed essential and have been moved forward. We're also doing another project up at West Virginia right now. We took a little bump on construction as people were trying to figure out what was going on, but we've kind of made it through that and are still on schedule. And so, you know, it's hard to see what's going to happen. We know there's going to be we hear these pumping or brakes, but stuff that's already in the pipeline is tending to kind of stay moving forward. So that's a great thing.
Great, Patrick. I think it probably covers it for you guys. Same situation there. I think Mark's kind of covered that. Cass, anything different in Charlotte or not? Not really.
We're pretty much all donor funded, or at least that's what we try to be. We're like a lot of schools. We have student fees that help keep us running, but we also don't like that model because the fact that is very fluctuating, especially in today's times. You're depending on enrollment, and so we've always been pretty good about building stuff off donor funds, and that's been one of our main emphasis with our master vision. Is that's how we want to keep operating in the future.
Okay, Justin, what else we got?
So again, Cass mentioned this a little bit as his backup plan if he's unable to build some facilities, but talk a little bit about shared spaces, rec spaces, how some of those other collaborative efforts, how they help facilitate design. Obviously we get a lot of smaller schools and things like that, some Division IIIs like me that have to plan a little bit more universally. And so Cass, if you can talk a little bit about that, or all of you.
Cass, go ahead. I mean, I know you guys are heavily in with rec sports there.
Yeah, I think the big thing for us is one thing that helped is University Recreation opened a brand new building on our campus. So that helped us because that alleviated space. For example, I actually have a project going right now for a new Olympic weight room that's going because they vacated that space. One piece with us that we always work on is how it will benefit the whole institution along with that particular unit. So if we are having to move a rec field, then we're moving it and it's equal or better type of thing. Now, the flip side of that with us is it falls on our budget. So instead of just building a soccer facility, you're also paying to move a rec field somewhere as well. We've had, luckily we've had experience with that because when we built our football facility, we put it right on top of what used to be the whole rec field district. And so we replaced all of those fields. I think as everybody knows, working on a campus is just maintaining those relationships because you don't want to look like land grabbers. And we're kind of falling into that now because the rec space that we actually built when football came in is now the rec space that we're going and asking for now that we're looking at new stuff. And a lot of times it comes down to a conversation also between your chancellor and your athletic director of, hey, is this space really necessary? And you have to be prepared with your numbers. If you're going to say, oh, they don't really use that space that much, well, you better have information to back it up type of thing. So that would be my recommendation is you just have to show how it's going to be beneficial for everybody. And also, sometimes, especially in our basketball arena, we're looking at putting in some premium seating. Well, how can that be used when not just for a basketball game?
I've always wanted to take a class in a suite. No, I'm just kidding. No.
Yeah.
This premium space. Mark, you seen any? I know in North Texas, for example, we talked rec sports a little bit, but are you seeing rec sports or other groups, student life and stuff in some of the plans?
It depends on the university, like you said, with you all. I'm trying to think of a good example. Sometimes you just have to draw it to know the answer. You think these two people could coexist, and sometimes you got to draw the field out. I mean, that's what led to the photograph there over Patrick's shoulder was just, can this football field really fit where this baseball stadium once was? So, I think from our standpoint, we're haven't been a part of some of those conversations recently, like Cass was talking about, but it's another example of being engaged and, sometimes you got to draw it in there and see what the possibilities might be. So
I think it's good. Great. Justin, we got some other ones?
Yeah, so this is kind of I combined 4 questions here because they're all kind of hitting on the same thing.
You keep combining these. You got like 15 you're going to put in one. This is going to be awesome.
No, they're all the same. They're all the same. So this is more internal and how you work. All right. We had one question in regards to, potentially starting this without a firm, looking at an internal project manager. How do you start approaching it? if you really don't have one, even just internally before reaching out or even not reaching out to an external firm, what does that look like? And then along that process, when do you incorporate coaches and other people once you start kind of rolling down that line?
Well, I'm going to start this one with Patrick because I think that his experience with Charlie in 2015 is the epitome of we're going to do this without a firm until I get my plan together. So Patrick, talk just some little nuggets from that maybe.
Sure thing. So we've done a lot of things here. We've done some things, I guess, would be the right way, where you go through, all the different campus stuff, and then we've done things where Mark has dubbed it Hatcher construction. So we've done a lot of demo. We've done a lot of build back, all within my staff and I. I got a great group of guys that help and always got a smile on their face as long as we got some music playing. Got some music playing in the background. So we've got campus people that kind of are those internal managers. Some of them are great. Some of them struggle a little bit. For the Convocation Center, they've actually hired an outside group. Obviously an $88-90 million project, you got to CYA some. So there's a whole nother campus group for that. But then for like the smaller projects, we kind of built the training room and the weight room by ourselves. We didn't even have the campus guy. But then for like the stadium project and the football coaches' offices, we had those like internal people working. And then Charlie does an awesome job. He kind of got burned when he was at App, allowing coaches to give a lot of input. So while we listen to coaches move, strength coaches change. Everybody moves frequently. We're building it for the student athletes based on Charlie's vision, Doug's vision, my vision, the rest of the senior staff's vision. And we'll take in the coach's input, but at the end of the day, that weight room is going to be there a lot longer than that coach is. And
Sure.
Coach is going to know that as we're building it. So the support that Charlie gives me to be able to be confident enough to walk up to the football coach, the strength coach, and say, this is how we're doing it, is second to none. So.
Perfect. I'm going to throw this to Mark for just one other point. Mark, do you get a lot of like you and Mike and Dane and Emily walk into a room and somebody drops their pre-done plan on the table? Are you like, oh God, or oh, this is good, at least I'll know what direction we want to go?
Well, we see plenty of that. I mean, we've like I said, we've got to kind of be the neutral party in the room sometimes, and we. Not designing to a coach is certainly a theme that we hear a lot of. And that's sometimes that's all well and good until you're in the meeting with the coach and they're pretty specific on what they want. And so, and sometimes there's the loudest voice in that room. But you can be smart about it too and still design in flexibility. So we try and do that and make sure we're following all the rules and anticipating who would be coming later, certainly, yeah.
Okay, real quick, guys, let's, one more quick question. Again, I combined two here. How long do you plan a building for? What's your lifespan? And then additionally, how are you planning that with new technologies and what that's looking like?
Mark, that sounds like a great question for you when you guys are planning this like lifespan and then technology stuff you're trying to get through.
We don't really plan an end cycle usually for most facilities, especially in terms of venues and stadiums. You kind of thinking of those for the long haul. There's a whole, technology you see is, Wi-Fi and distributed antenna systems and stadiums are always changing, and acoustic models on the best way to do that. And so a lot of that, we rely on our experts that we work with, certainly, that do that all over the country. But when it comes to master planning, a lot of times there's facilities, have a shelf life. And so if it's a new facility, we're very rarely planning new facilities for short shelf lives. But if we need to, there's Patrick's got a good example in there where that soccer field's going right now of a facility that can be more of a temporary one. But we really, a lot of times that's also, sometimes you have to draw it. The facility that we had a good example there on your campus, Nick, with the facility we didn't really volleyball practice that we didn't really have a good use for. When you draw it out and and look, softball fits in there pretty good actually as an infield practice. And so sometimes facilities that you didn't know were going to have a use, so you can come up with a new one. And if those are tied to donors, that's also a factor there. That sometimes can be a reason. Okay, we got to find a use for this because we need to keep this building and this name a part of campus, important part. So sometimes you've got to draw it.
Great. Well, guys, I think that we are up against it, and I want to thank you all for your time. Justin, thank you for helping us with the Q&A and all that. And I want to thank NACTA and the CEFMA Board of Directors again. A special shout out to Katie Newman for making this all work. She's done a lot of work behind the scenes to make this happen. And from our panel to everybody watching, thank you and have a great rest of your convention. Justin, I'm going to throw it back to you.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. Excellent. And again, you stole my thunder with Katie. I was going to throw that out there as well. Reminder tonight, 7 o'clock Eastern, whatever your local time is, from there is the happy hour. We find that this is extremely valuable. This is, we miss the networking at convention most of all. And so we thought this was an opportunity. So we'll have little breakout rooms and connection and opportunities. So please, please, please make sure you register for that. It's our opportunity to have some fun, to enjoy one another, to let off some steam and share a little bit and get to know each other. All right, so I look forward to seeing you tonight. And then after that, we go back next week. Enjoy your Memorial Day as well. All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Is that happy hour BYOB?
It is. It is.
All right.